So here is a long promised video about how to make some pretty simple beats on your mobile phone. This is for Nigel and Will and Dan and other Dan and various other people who've been asking me about this over the last few weeks since I started releasing music again after a break of really a very long time. But I've now been putting up one EP per month since I think September or October 2019. My sixth one is due to come out I think probably next week sometime. That's the last week of January 2020. And yeah, not that it's super interesting or common knowledge, but quite a lot of the main elements of some of those tracks were actually produced on my phone initially. Producing music on iPad and on your mobile phone gets a pretty bad rap, because obviously you can't finish a really genuinely chunky piece of music just using a phone. Of course you can't, although you can get pretty close these days, and I'll show you how to get there over the course of some of these videos. But mobile is massively handy for capturing ideas, musical ideas, or little recordings when you're out and about of sounds or interesting sort of rhythms that you might hear that you can sample and put into a track. And also just to kind of keep your creativity flowing when you're out and about. Very often, the only quiet time you're going to get to yourself when you're on the train on the way to work, or whether you're out and about, or whether you're just waiting in a queue for a coffee or something, just get out one of the music apps and just bash out some notes or some beats. I do that every single day. Every day I produce some little idea or other, and it just kind of keeps things going. It builds a massive amount of material that you can choose from, sort of over time, as long as you store it and file it properly. It can be a real treasure trove of stuff. So I'm going to talk about a couple of apps that I use, well, three apps really that I use in earnest, and I'll touch on a couple of others, just kind of useful tools, and a couple of other apps that I know exist that I've got in demo form on this, but I've never really used them in earnest. So I'm going to be covering. Well, here they are. I'm going to be covering Reason Compact by Reason Studios, who used to be called Propellerhead. They're the maker of a desktop application called Reason that I've been using since version 2 in about 2001. It's an incredible creative tool. So I'll cover a little bit about how Reason Compact works in the first set of videos, and then later on I'll give an overview of what Reason on the main computer on the laptop actually looks like, and what that can do, because it's very powerful. Second one I'll explain is GarageBand. Everyone's got GarageBand on their iPhone or on their iOS device, iPad or whatever. I wrote it off until about October last year as just being a bit of a toy. I hated the interface, didn't like the way it looked. I found it really complicated, really confusing, and I just didn't get into it at all for ages. Then I thought, well, actually, do you know what? It's pretty handy because you can shuttle files backwards and forwards between GarageBand on the phone and Logic, or even indeed GarageBand on your Mac if you're running a Mac. And I just thought I'd give it a proper go, and I have to say, just on the run up to Christmas last year, I was absolutely blown away by what you can do with it. So I'll be spending a few videos explaining what I've got out of GarageBand, because I think it's something that really, if you've got an iPhone, you shouldn't overlook what you can do just on that. It comes with the phone, it's free, doesn't require downloading or anything, and it's an amazing piece of kit actually. So a lot of my newer ideas are formed in GarageBand, and again I'll explain where it really scores highly by comparison to some of the others. So that's GarageBand, that one, and Reason. The other one I'll do later on is this little thing called Figure. It's made by the same people that make Reason, and it's very quirky. It's very cool, it's quite powerful, but it's very hard to use. It's intuitive as an interface, but it's completely its own thing. It's completely unique. But the biggest problem with it is that you can't export the files. You have to export anything you've done as individual audio files, which is of course an absolutely massive hassle. And to be honest, I haven't actually figured out how to export anything off of Figure since I upgraded my phone and my laptop quite a while ago. So whilst I'm still making a lot of tunes with Figure and just sort of tinkering about with it for ideas and creativity, I haven't used it in earnest for a while. Having said that, though, it's got some really cool features. And if any of you have heard the track Samsara that I put out towards the end of last year, the main riff on that comes immediately out of Figure. I've tweaked it a little bit in the sort of post-production, and I can explain how I did that in a later video, just to kind of boost the EQs and make the whole thing just sound a bit fuller and fatter. But the whole thing, the main riff and the whole sort of spirit of that track actually just came out of this. Figure, I believe, is free. Reason Compact, I think, is also free. GarageBand is definitely free. So if you're looking just to kind of get into making some music for no cost, on the basis that you've got a reasonably decent iPhone, then this is a pretty good starting batch, because you've got some quite a lot of versatility here. Just because we're on this screen, Gadget LE is a Korg app, which again you can export stuff out of to the other Korg desktop versions, which I don't actually have, but I'll touch on that in a later video. And Take is by the same people as Figure and Reason, but it's like a sort of vocal demo recorder. Again, I've used it a bit. I'll do a run through of what it can do, but I use the Apple things, voice memos and music memos, primarily for actually recording audio actually on the phone. So that's a little bit of an introduction. What I'll also be doing as I get more into doing some of these kind of how-to videos, and just kind of getting into my setting up my channel, and maybe when I get a few more subscribers, I'm really interested in just explaining a bit about how the creative process and what you actually end up with relates to the music industry and the business. It's particularly interesting if you're making music on your own, because you're a composer, you're a producer, and once you've exported your final audio file, you're effectively a producer, like a record company as well. And in order to know how to what to do next, you need to sort of understand how each of those little universes works and interacts. And obviously, having spent a lot of time over the last 20 years dealing with that sort of thing, that's something that I'm really keen on sharing with everyone. So I hope that's going to be useful as well.